Dear participants, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the first experience conversation of MTCOM. My name is İpek Atırcan, and I am a research assistant at Anadolu University, Turkey. It's my pleasure to host this amazing conversation. In this session, our esteemed participants will share their academic experiences with us and provide information that will especially shed light to young academics. We thank our guests, Assistant Professor Katerina Berezina, Assistant Professor Lisa Chain, and Assistant Professor Minwoo Lee for their participation. Before starting our conversation, I would like to briefly talk about the resumes of our guests. Dr. Katerina Berezina is an assistant professor in the Department of Nutrition and Hospitality Management at the University of Mississippi. Dr. Berezina is also a coordinator of two university programs that integrate real-life hotel software into the hospitality curriculum, the Inroad University program and M3 Inside University program. Dr. Lisa Chain is an assistant professor in the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Florida International University, where she teaches undergraduate and graduate courses. Dr. Minwoo Lee is an assistant professor at the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management at the University of Houston. Dr. Lee currently leads the Data Analytics and Service Innovation Lab. Today, they will share their valuable experiences with us. Before inviting them, I would like to invite the moderator of this session, Assistant Professor Faizan Ali from the University of South Florida, Muma College of Business. He is a marketing professor and graduate coordinator in the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in Sarasota, Manatee. Hello, Professor Ali, how are you?
Hello, İpek. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for being the moderator of this amazing session. The screen and the microphone are yours.
Okay, thank you very much. You said it's mine, so I just want to take them away with me. But thank you for your kind introduction. I am really privileged and honored to moderate this session because not only all the panelists are very good friends of mine, but I look up to them. They inspire me every single day. If they do not post regularly, at least one of them do. Right. So every day I see something going on and it's really, really inspirational. So I want to thank all of them for being our panelists today. And we'll try to keep this this whole panel more conversational so that we can all take part into it. And for the participants who are here, I again thank you all. I know that in Turkey, it's quite late in the evening. And then we also have some people from Pakistan, from India and other places. And it's quite late. So thank you for joining us from wherever you are joining. You can all use the chat feature if you have any questions for all the panelists or any one of the panelists. So let's start with the panel now. We have Dr. Katerina Berezina, Dr. Minwoo Lee, and Dr. Lisa Chain. Let's start with this. So before we go into the conversation, I'll ask all the panelists to one by one tell us about themselves, their research, what do they do, maybe in 2 to 3 minutes each. Let's start with ladies first. So I'll go with Lisa, because Lisa is in a very interesting situation right now. She is joining us from a recreational vehicle, from an RV. So Lisa, how about you start and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much for the very kind and glowing introduction, Faizan, and thank you all for having me. My name, as Dr. Ali said, is Lisa Chain. I am an assistant professor at Florida International University. I teach marketing management. I teach global issues and competitive methods. I also teach women in hospitality leadership at the undergraduate level. And my research interests are very much aligned with customer and employee experiences, and specifically substance use, but also positive organizational behavior, positive customer behavior and interactions. And then lastly, I'm also interested in how technology influences all of these behaviors. I've done a little bit of grant work. We've developed an IoT and hospitality certificate program at FIU, which was funded by the Cisco Day Initiative. And I have a few other NIH and NSF grants in the works, so hopefully those will come to fruition and I'll be able to share those with all of you as well. And it's an honor and privilege to be here with you today to share my experiences. As Faizan said, I'm actually operating from a recreational vehicle in Kentucky right now. So it's a unique experience, and I think it'll definitely play nicely into our discussion on work-life balance. So thank you.
Lisa. It surely is. I've never experienced something like that, but I would love to. I don't know how good that would be, but I'd love to have that meetings from RV. All right, so thank you for your introduction. Katrina, maybe we'll have you introduce yourself in a couple of minutes, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Faizan, for having me. I'm very excited to join the conference. My name is Dr. Katerina Berezina. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Mississippi, and I teach courses in hospitality technology, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. Also, I teach in our online master's program. So usually half, if not full, my teaching load is online. So I teach a lot of online courses and I enjoy online education. So from perspective of my research, I stay in the same area so that hospitality technology is my major focus for teaching and research as well. So I had the pleasure of collaborating with Dr. Kane and with other scholars around the world, I can say, on research papers and also on grant proposals. So recently, I have been working on topics related to robotics and also virtual realities and different virtual tools for tourism. I'm very excited about these topics and happy to share. And probably something that would be interesting and relevant to the audience here is that I'm originally from Russia. I was born and raised there. I completed my undergraduate degree in Russia and started my career as a travel agent. You probably may guess that the top sold destination on the Russian market was Turkey. I had the privilege of visiting Turkey a couple of times on FAM trips, Antalya region from Alanya, Side, Kemer, all the way on that coast. Yes, so I'm very happy to join the conference and share my experiences with you.
Thank you, Katrina. While you did mention about your online teaching, I want to take a moment to congratulate you for getting a Paragon Award, which is an excellence in distance teaching. Recently it came out, right? So congratulations for that.
Thank you, thank you.
Perfect. All right, so let's move on to our very good friend, Dr. Minwoo Lee from University of Houston. Minwoo, can you please just introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you, Faizan. Thank you for your kind introduction. And hello, everyone. My name is Minwoo Lee, and I'm an assistant professor at the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management at the University of Houston. Before I introduce myself, I would like to thank Dr. Kubanoglu and Dr. Dogan for organizing this amazing conference and also inviting me to share my humble knowledge and experience with everyone here today. And I'm teaching technology-driven service innovation and big data analytics and also business analytics and also social media analytics at the graduate level and also undergraduate level. And I'm interested in how innovative technologies enhance customer experience and fun performance. So my research focuses on the impact of innovative technologies and persuasion and decision-making in social media and service innovation, big data analytics, and also machine learning in the hospitality and tourism context. So based on my these topics, I have published more than 30 peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, and trade articles in hospitality, tourism, and information systems for the last 4 years. And as I recently wrote my first book entitled In the Digital Transformation. And also I'm serving as the editorial board member for the Contemporary Journal and Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, and Tourism Economics, and Journal of Smart Tourism. And also I'm leading 2 different labs, the Digital Thinking Lab and also the Data Analytics and Service Innovation Lab. So for the industry, I have worked as a consultant and research associate for Accor Hotel, Hilton, and Intercontinental. So I may share this experience with industry as well today. And so I'm currently serving as the director of research for the hotel development and management company, Bali Group. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Minwoo. I appreciate you introducing yourself. I also want to tell everyone that while many of us get scared when we look at one Excel sheet, Minwoo has expertise in this, and he plays with millions of data points. So that's the big data thing, very interested in what you do. So for today's introductions are done, let's move into the conversation. And I think because it's an experience-based discussion, right, it won't mean anything until I start with all of you telling us, how did you actually decide that you want to get into research-based careers or into academia and all this stuff? So this time, let's start with Katrina. Katrina, when is it then that when you actually decided that this is something I want to do, and then you started preparing for it?
Thank you, Faizan. Yes, that's a great question. Well, actually, that happened during my master's degree. And I have to admit that I took a 180 degrees turn. So when entering my master's degree, as I told you, I started working in Russia, and then I felt that I wanted to continue my education. So I moved to the United States and I went to the University of Delaware. So my initial idea was that, yes, I advance my education and then I go back to further develop my career in the industry. And that didn't happen, as you know now. So of course, honestly, I did not know very well what an academic role, especially in the United States, would entail. And I can say that during my master's degree at the University of Delaware, I learned what that means. So I learned about research, I learned about working with professors and graduate students. And that changed me. So I need to thank for that Dr. Jihan Chobanoglu, because he was, I think, the main influence in this. He was my master's thesis advisor and also a mentor for life. So, the master's degree gave me so many opportunities to work on research projects and go to conferences and just in informal atmosphere like this one to learn from professors what that means to be in this job and what are the major skills and requirements. So, and I was thinking that, well, that's a very exciting world and I like it as well. So honestly, I very much enjoyed my career in the industry and I always try to stay connected with the industry, but the research and the teaching and academic piece also excited me very much. So that's how the change happened.
All right, this is cool. So because you mentioned Dr. Jihan, so I also want to mention him. I don't know how many people he actually, touched their lives and transitioned them from industry into academia. But
yes.
I don't know.
I think
how
we cannot count.
Yes, it's difficult. Interestingly, last year in Auburn conference, we were not Auburn graduate conference. We were sitting in a room. You probably may recall it that. Every single person in that room said that somehow Dr. Jihan touched their life. So thank you, Dr. Jihan. I'm also one of his mentees, so thank you. All right. Thank you, Katrina, also for your answer. Let's move to Lisa. Lisa, so I'm going to give this question a little bit twist, okay? I want you to tell us this. So in the last 5-6 years in my, tenure in the US, I've seen that there are not too many Americans who go up for PhD. I mean, you see a few people in masters, but when it comes to PhD, then it's predominantly international students in PhD programs, right? There may be a lot of reasons for it, but you being an American, when is it that you realize that, look, I want to go for this PhD thing, and then you started talking about it or what? So we'll be interested in listening to that.
So I think I've always been interested in academia. In my undergraduate degree program, I was an English language and literature major. So I also took a 180-degree turn. I went and worked in industry for a few years, and a little bit further background than that, my entire family is in the hospitality industry. My mother and father both work in the industry. My brother is the GM of a Michael Mina restaurant currently. And I also worked for the Mina Group in my work experience. And so then after, when I started working for the Mina Group, I decided to go get a master's degree. And then, like Katerina, in the master's program, one of my mentors, Dr. Miranda Kitterlin, asked on the first day of our class if anyone was interested in pursuing a PhD. And I raised my hand, and she said, "I'm going to talk you out of it, but if I can't talk you out of it, then I'm going to tell you where you should go." And that is how I started cultivating a greater interest in research, and also applied for the PhD program at UNLV and was admitted, and then the rest is history from there. So
all right.
that is
And then I just want to add something here, because Dr. Pat told me something, and he said that in his career, because probably Miranda asked you to go and talk to Dr. Pat, but then Dr. Pat told me he has never seen a student who was so focused like you, because when you went to meet him, you already knew what you want to do, right? So I just wanted to bring it, because he did say this a few days ago. We were having lunch, and then he was talking about this. So, all right, very cool. Then we move to Minwoo. So Minwoo, you are originally from South Korea, right? And you obviously moved from South Korea to the US. How was this realization that, look, I want to go for PhD, and then I definitely want to go to the US or any other country to get my PhD? When was that realization?
Actually, fortunately, I had a great research assistant opportunity when I was studying in business school for my undergraduate, the bachelor degree. So my advisor showed me how interesting we can work for the company and also the research. So at that time, I was able to see the academic freedom. That means what we can do what we like to do, right? To help other people. So it was very fascinating to me, because I felt that whenever I help other people based on my knowledge or skills, and also when I learn something new and apply those knowledge and skills to other industry phenomena, I felt very, very happy. So I decided to, okay, I want to study more, but I didn't know how much work I have to do after getting my PhD. So I'm feeling, okay, that decision was good or bad, I don't know, but I'm really happy, to be honest, right now. But so at the time in early 2000, the e-business and e-commerce is one of the emerging topics in the world. So I look for the good program in MIS, because I majored MIS, the Management Information System, from my undergraduate program to master. So I decided to come to US, because US is one of the leading, the best, the countries in terms of the education. So I went to Texas Tech University, and then I majored Management Information System there. And then actually I moved to Canada for my first PhD study. Even though I didn't finish my PhD at McGill, I studied in the information systems for 3 years there. But I realized that my interest, research focus, is more related to not only technology, but people. So how technology can help people, and also how we can deliver the services or products by using the innovative technologies. And also I really want to I'm interested in, at the time, all my research focused on the service industry. So I decided to move down to University of Massachusetts for the PhD in hospitality and tourism management. So it's me. And then yes, it was sometimes hard, but now I'm really happy to overcome all those barriers, and also go through everything through the master program and PhD, and now I'm here.
Yeah, so you, Minu, talked about like you first went to Canada and then even you started your PhD, you realized that you might want something different, and then you came to University of Massachusetts and then you got your PhD, right? And I know that Katrina in her studies also had a switch from one university to another. So I just want to say this because there are quite a lot of people listening. I've been saying this for many times that sometimes we face some issues or change of heart or change of plan or whatever. And then it's okay to change as far as you know why you are changing, right? It's okay to change the way. All right. So Minu, because you talked about this, so I'm going to pose my next question to you and then we can move to others. And that is, so we know that how did you think about, getting into research and everything. My next question is, how was your transition from being a PhD student to all of a sudden being now a faculty member? And it doesn't take long, right? So it's like, in around March, April, you're a PhD student, and then in August, you suddenly become a faculty member, mainly tenure track or something. How was that transition? Like, how long did it take you to realize that I'm no more a PhD student, I am a faculty member?
That was a great question. Actually, when I moved from Massachusetts to Houston, Texas in August 2017, I brought Harvey to Houston. So many people here, okay, you brought Harvey from Massachusetts, and then we had a very difficult time at the time, right? So, but other than that, the main difference between my PhD and being a professor here is when I was in a PhD student, I only focused on my teaching and research, and then I could follow my advisor's direction and advice as well. But here, I'm the only one who needs to make a decision and lead all teaching and research. And also, we need to do service as well, right, for our students and the college. So within the limited time, it in the first year, it was a little bit challenging to me to handle everything at the same time. But fortunately, our college did not give too much work, the service work, in the first year, so it was not too bad as I remember. But another thing is we need to develop our own teaching courses. So in my experience, I want to teach the business analytics in the hospitality and tourism setting. So I have to develop my own course in the first semester. So it's a little bit different story. For instance, you can follow the faculty members' course by adding more things, right? But the developing a new course is a completely different story. So it was a little bit challenging to me, but the good thing is I can develop my course, and also I can teach my course I want to teach to my students. So that was a great opportunity for me.
All right. So yeah, you're right. So when you're a PhD student, you're mainly in research, and then as a faculty member, then you come into teaching and research plus also service, which sometimes is overwhelming because you've never done something like that before, right? So, all right, let's move to Lisa. Lisa, how was your transition from being a graduate student to a tenure track assistant professor?
I think it was a very smooth transition. I think that depending on how and where you transition to also dictates that, because there is this layer of not just your shift in mindset, right? You're transitioning from a student to a faculty member, but then your peers around you. So if you stay within the same institution, let's say I graduated from UNLV and then I went to work there, think about the power dynamic of all of those professors who were previously my professors and now they're my peers. And I think that there is something beneficial. And I did leave UNLV. I went to FIU to teach and to become a faculty member. And so I think because of that, it gave me and my previous mentors and professors time to sort of allow me to develop into a peer without having an immediate shift. But if you stay within the same institution, I think it might be a little bit more challenging. I think a change in scenery helps to facilitate that shift in both your mindset as well as your peers' mindset, because now your PhD advisor is all of a sudden your peer. All of your mentors, all of your professors are now your peers. The moment you graduate, the moment you get that diploma that says you are now, or actually it's the moment you defend your dissertation successfully, you become a peer. So I think that's the first challenge and hurdle. And sometimes it takes years. I don't think I've fully moved past seeing my PhD advisor as anything other than, I still refer to him as Dr. B, and I think my children refer to him as Dr. B, and I think we will always refer to him as Dr. B. And there are a few people I think who will always hold that title in my head, regardless. Dr. Kumaglu is one example as well. And then there's this, I think depending on where you go, some PhD programs, I've only been to one, so I can only speak to the one I went to. I think they did a very good job of setting us up mentally, and also just from a practical standpoint, because we were required to teach during our PhD program. So we got that classroom experience. We got the experience of first shadowing a professor and then teaching the class that we shadowed. So we had an opportunity to see how it was done, adopt a syllabus, adopt a classroom style, and then change it to however we wanted to do it. But it gave us teaching experience, and then of course the research experience. And I think that it's very important as a master's student, and then especially as a PhD student, to really start to get into research and develop a pipeline of at least having 1 or 2 papers, either in conceptual state, in submission, or in revision. Because if you go into your full-time faculty position without anything in the works, it's going to be a challenge to meet the publication requirements and the research requirements of your position. So finding, if your program doesn't set that up for you, taking that initiative and doing that yourself is really important. UNLV did a great job of that. And then also just being aware of the service expectation and making it clear, and really trying to find out what the expectation of service is, and really trying to temper yourself not to go over it, because it's really easy, especially as a junior faculty member, to want to say yes to everything, because you want to be collegial, you want to be a team player, you want to contribute, you want to make your mark. And sometimes it's beneficial to do that in the service aspect. But for example, at FIU, we have 10% of our overall evaluation is on 10% of our efforts are supposed to be focused towards service. So I do more than 10% of service. I have always done more than 10% of service, but making sure you don't take on too much, especially early on, and really focusing on honing your teaching and honing your research will benefit you in the long run. And also learning when it's important to say no, when you can say, I have, too much on my plate, I just don't have the bandwidth anymore. Those are really good ways to gently say no without, using the word, which can be intimidating, especially as a junior faculty. So that is my experience.
Sure, Lisa, what was interesting is that I'm actually taking notes when you guys are talking, so I can then segue to the next question, and you won't believe it. I actually wrote on my paper saying yes to everything, and that was exactly when you also said saying yes to everything, and I was so surprised. But anyways, I'm just going to go to Katrina now. So Katrina, it's the same question, right? Transitioning from PhD to faculty, but I also want to ask you one other thing that you can integrate into this. When I met you, Katrina, for the first time, you have such a positive vibe. You're always smiling. You are so nice. And then you hardly, at least my experience is, you hardly say no, right? I don't know how it was when you just finished your PhD and got into a faculty position. But have you had some challenges with, how do I say no to people? Especially, you just talked about Dr. Jehan, and I know that your first job was when Dr. Jehan was dean, right? So when you are under such a big pressure with people who touch your life, and then they ask you to do something, should you say yes? Should you say no? What do you say about that?
Yes, thank you so much, Faizan, and all panelists who answered this question before me. I think I will agree on all accounts with everything that have been said. So when I answer this question, I would think about this from two perspectives. So if we have PhD students on the call right now, so one part of this equation is your experience during the PhD program. And while you're doing your PhD, you are making, to a certain extent, your own experiences. And the second part of it is your contract when you get in your first assistant professor job. Okay, so let's break it down. The first part, when I was a PhD student, and I did my PhD at the University of Florida, which is a top-ranked research-intensive university, very high research expectations. So, of course, I worked on my PhD, and all PhD students are required to complete their dissertation, right? But think about what you're doing along the way. You probably, in every class during your PhD program, you will be required to write a research project or a proposal or do a literature review or something like this. So keep in mind and think about what can you do with that project? How can you make it published? So if it fits more into a case study format, write a case study. If it's maybe a comprehensive literature review, do a literature review. If it's a methods class, so try to turn a paper into a publication. That helps. So the next item is your dissertation. At the University of Florida, we had a dissertation format, which is called a 3-paper dissertation. So basically, when I was writing my dissertation, I was not writing a one large piece of 5 chapters, but instead I had introduction and then article 1, article 2, and article 3, and then common conclusions. So all of my papers were related to flash sales in hospitality. But what that did is that strategically, the 3rd paper of the dissertation was planned as a conceptual paper. So you can see that when I graduated, I had 2 empirical papers with data collection and analysis ready. One was qualitative, one was quantitative, and they were ready for submission to the journal. Usually, when you write a dissertation, you then have to do quite a lot of work to break it down into 2 or 3 papers. So my dissertation was set up that way from the very beginning. So the next item that Lisa mentioned is a conceptual paper, thinking about your future, right? So the 3rd paper in my dissertation was conceptual. So basically, I wrote my research plan for the first years in assistant professor job. So some of you spoke about the service experience, and actually I had quite a lot of service experience in my PhD program. So how did that happen? Some of it was my initiative. For example, I was a founding president of the Hospitality, Financial, and Technology Professionals chapter at the University of Florida. That's HFTP, and membership is free to all students. So that's a great opportunity for you if you're interested in technology and finance. So then I also looked for different service opportunities, such as Graduate Student Council. And there was a council. So what I did is that I found a department of that council, which was responsible for student grants. So my experience was in reviewing applications of other students, but you can see that this is a very relevant experience to your assistant professor position. And other responsibilities and experiences came from my mentors and professors. For example, Dr. Jihan invited me to be an editorial assistant of his journal, Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, when I was a PhD student. And now, 10 years later, I am a managing editor of that journal. Such a great experience, right? It's a long way, but it pays off and it's exciting. So that's one part. You can make your own PhD experiences. If you're not given teaching, ask for teaching. If you are not doing enough research, find a mentor in research. If you are excited about some service opportunities, get engaged with them. Then the other item is the assistant professor position. And Faizan asked me to think about how you can say no. I have to admit that that's a challenge. And there are people who you cannot say no to. So, but then I think that you always need to be critical and evaluate. So I also think that it's better for me to say no to a person who is very important to me and who is my good colleague than to say yes and let them down. So that's the part that sort of, scares me to an extent. Yes, in a way you want to say yes to all these wonderful opportunities that are out there, but then think about the other side of the coin. If you cannot do it, that's a problem. And probably one last item that I would add here about your assistant professor position is that when you are receiving a job offer, something to negotiate or something to discuss is the help, for example, in the form of a startup fund or a graduate assistant, service reduction, something that Minwoo mentioned as well. So if you don't have that many service obligations to begin with, that makes it easier. And another one is a course release. So many research-oriented universities would offer a course release, for example, in the first semester or in the first year, so that you can keep your head up. Yes, so that's my advice.
Thank you, Katrina. Very detailed. And I like you divided it into a few different areas, right? And I absolutely agree to you that PhD experience during your studies is your own sort of an art piece. Like you have to build it up, you have to draw it for yourself. But the problem here is also that it depends on what's the education system. So now you, Katrina, Lisa, and Minwoo, all of you had your PhDs from the US, right? And then in US, normally there's a lot of coursework. So not only PhD students have an opportunity to take those courses at PhD level, at higher level, and learn from all that, but then also professors allow you to be as teaching assistants, right? So you sometimes have an opportunity to be an assistant or shadow or help with the PPT slides or grading or all that stuff. Now, there's a lot of countries where British system is followed, and I'm pretty sure that Turkey follows British system, where that's not the case. It's very limited amount of courses, sometimes 1 or 2 courses, and then there's no opportunity to teach. So I just want to say here, taking it from your book, Katrina, that if there's no or very limited teaching opportunities, you as PhD students should go and ask your professors or any teachers that you're close to, and you can volunteer. Like, this is another issue that people always feel like, what do I get in return, right? And if at that time they would know that what are the challenges coming their way when they start their job, nobody would think, what am I going to get in return now? So I think going to professors, asking them, volunteering to, help them with grading and whatever is going to help you ultimately in the future when you start your work. So, okay, perfect. Now,
Faizan, I have just
yes.
a quick comment.
Sure.
I want to give an example of my PhD student, Olena. She also did not have an opportunity to teach until her very last year of PhD. And I think that's very similar to the situation that you are describing because of different educational systems. But I have invited Olena to speak in my classes so that she had a couple of guest lectures. And in addition to that, she also created a couple of online modules for my 2 online classes. So, and you see the importance of online education these days. So she didn't have an opportunity to teach a full online class, but now she has several ready modules that she can use as her portfolio to show to a potential employer that these are the materials that she created and she designed the lesson and exercise, of course, with my help, because it becomes a part of my course. But I think that's a great opportunity to do guest lectures in a face-to-face Zoom format, online format for PhD students to build their experience, skills, and CVs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very good example. And I mean, even if I recall my own experience when I was getting my PhD in Malaysia, the same issue, there's no teaching, nothing, right? Because there are not enough courses. But I remember I was like, I actually really irritated my professors to give me an opportunity to either teach their classes or whatever. And then, for the first couple of semesters, it didn't work. But later, they didn't want me to be at their office door all the time. So then they gave me some opportunities, which helped me a long way, right? So, and for service, I think, yeah, Minwoo, yes.
I think the Katrina points out very important aspects for the PhD students and semester students in terms of research and teaching. So for the research, I have seen many students when they just write the term paper, for instance, they just write something and then submit it and then it's done. But my recommendation is if they, all of us here, if we can really try to quality work for every single research paper, even that's a term paper, and then you can develop that paper when you become a professor, and then you can develop and publish the paper. So I published all the papers I wrote in my classroom. So it's really good for me to make my pipeline instead of just creating new research and on and on. And the second thing is, if you, as these students, are really hard for them to find out the teaching opportunity, they may look for the opportunity how they can contribute to the program. So maybe they can design and develop a new course. For instance, when I was PhD student, I taught the hotel operations, but as you know, my research topic it was the social media and marketing and analytics. So I met with my chair, department chair, and then I suggest that, okay, why don't we develop the social media marketing or social media analytics for undergraduate students? Because we did not have that course. And then the chair approved that. So I was able to have a chance to develop my course, my own course. And at the time, Katrina was the M3 Center director. So I have received many different resources and help from her. But anyway, so now that course is one of the mandatory courses in UMass. So it was really a great opportunity because based on that experience, I was able to develop my own course here at the University of Houston. So I just recommend all the students here try to do quality work for their class work and also try to be proactive to show their passion and contribution they can make for their program.
Yeah, so very good. Again, another very good example. I just want to say one other thing. Look, universities are different everywhere. There are very different rules, right? But like Katrina said, and like what you said, Mingu, I think it also goes to inner drive, right? So as a PhD student, how much inner drive do you have to do something? And these days, there are so many opportunities. I mean, probably most of you know my research channel on YouTube, right? It takes a long time, and if you want to do a good job, you need to spend a lot of time. So that can also be another avenue. If you are good at something, if you are good at your course or whatever you want to do, develop it, deliver online lectures on YouTube, let it be, and it can actually act as your portfolio when you apply for jobs or whatever. You can always use it and say like, this is what I do. So there's a lot that can be done. Now, one thing that we didn't touch here, and because we are talking about being able to, get a better job as a PhD student, whatever. Now, one other thing that I see which is different in different countries is experience of students. So in the US, you see that people, when they get their undergraduate degree, then they go no more graduate studies, maybe 5 years, 10 years later, they come back for masters. And then the same thing, right? So there's a gap between masters and then PhD. But then if you look at many Asian countries, that's not the case. There's undergraduate degree and then directly you go for masters, and then either in your country or abroad, you get to a PhD program. So then you see that many international students in the US, when they finish their PhD, they have hardly any experience compared to their other counterparts. So my question to you, Lisa, is how important do you think is industry experience for PhD students when they're transitioning into a faculty role, and should they go for it or not? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on the individual. I think it depends on the inner drive and what their area of interest is as well. I think in Minwoo's case, he has a lot of work experience, industry experience, but I don't know that you necessarily need a lot of industry experience if your area is data analytics. If you're good at data analytics, you could do it in any field, and it could, it's transferable across any field. And I think you just need the experience in knowing how to analyze the data properly. I think if you're teaching, if your area of interest is food and beverage management, it may be more beneficial to have that work experience for a few years to know what it's like to have to organize a front and back of house staff at the same time. Our industry is very experiential in nature, and so I think the benefit that even students who don't necessarily have a ton of work experience have is on that customer side, because we do have so many marketing and customer facing experience models that we put together and see and try to understand. And I think as we are all customers of the hospitality industry, we can have that without necessarily having the business side of it. So I think it is dependent upon what the area of focus is, and then also the program in general. I know at certain programs, they won't admit you if you don't have a certain number of years of leadership experience or just work experience in general. And then there are other programs that will admit you if you have the grades and meet the testing requirements. So again, I think it's dependent upon both the applicant and where they're applying. So.
All right, so Katerina, the same question for you, but I actually want to understand that, look, you had industry experience, right? You worked at a travel agency and all that. How applicable was it for you as how important was it for you as a PhD student, or like right after your PhD? Did you actually apply all that work experience anywhere? Was it important? Was it not important?
Thank you, Faizan. Yes, I have work experience in travel agencies and also in hotels. So I think that it is very helpful for me from different perspectives. The first perspective is the content knowledge of the industry. So for example, when you design your research, and we are a very applied field, right? So we want to develop theoretical concepts and frameworks to understand, for example, consumer behavior, how customers respond to certain technologies, why they do or they don't. But at the same time, it needs to be something meaningful. So something that matters to the industry, something that plays a role. So I think that, me working in travel agencies and hotels, it sort of helped me to understand this part of the distribution and relationship between hotels and travel agencies, customer service. So in addition to the content knowledge, sort of the industry specific knowledge, it also gives you a lot of skills in working with people, understanding consumer behavior, right? So a travel agency is a sales job, right? So you have to understand people and you have to read their behavior without them telling you maybe everything. So you can take those experiences and you can transfer them, for example, to the classrooms or to collaboration with your peers. So if you have this, people skills, relationship skills, that helps a lot. So in a way, also, I think managing time, so probably your industry job also helps you to mature, to understand the industry better. So these days, of course, when I have a career in academia, I still want to stay relevant to the professional world and make my publications relevant and important. And I serve the professional organization. So when you have that experience, it sort of helps you to connect with people. But at the same time, I'm not shy to ask, okay, how do you do this these days? So it sort of sounds scary, but it has been more than 10 years since I left the travel agency world, right? And it scares me when I say the number, but I still think that the experience is relevant and it was important. But also, I think that it's not a deal breaker. And in addition to what Lisa said, looking at the area of expertise and what you want to do, I also know that some universities, they even send their faculty member who is lacking experience in a certain area to a faculty internship. And that's something that may be a really great opportunity. I know that ICRE, that's the International Council for Hotel, Restaurant, and Institutional Education, used to provide faculty internships as well to faculty. So, or maybe just engage with industry through different project work. Even for my students, when I asked a university partner to create an industry-oriented project for my students, it's a learning experience for students, but for me as well. So I think that there are a lot of areas where you can sort of compensate for the lack of experience, such as working with the industry partners or being involved with a professional organization or finding such opportunities for faculty internships, maybe.
Very good. Thank you, Katrina. So moving to
Can
Minwoo,
I
right?
add
Yeah, sure, Lisa.
add
Yes.
one really quick thing to what Katerina said? So just building off of that a little bit more, I do think a little foundational knowledge of the industry is definitely vital to success. It doesn't have to be decades and decades, but I also know that I teach in the Executive Master's online program at FIU. And I do think that that experience as well, I have lively discussion boards, and I have students who have 1 to 2 years of work experience in that platform. And I also have students who have 35 years of work experience. And obviously, I am not old enough to have 35 years of work experience, and yet we still have meaningful conversations. So I think at least a foundational knowledge to help cultivate those meaningful experiences, but then taking what the more seasoned veterans say, I think I've amassed a ton of tangential work experience through my conversations in the classroom and through all of the probing questions that I ask and get answers to in our discussions, in our article summaries, and how it relates back to their careers and any of the online Zoom discussions we have. You build your repertoire and your understanding of the industry as it currently exists as well through your classroom discussions. So there are ways to increase your experience even without taking a break and going into industry, and keeping yourself relevant by staying engaged in your classroom and with your students as well. So.
Sure, thank you, Lisa. And I see that Stan is also one of the participants, and he said that he completely agrees to you and Katrina that students and faculty members should have experience. Now, my question is this, and this is for Minwoo. So Minwoo, same question, but I'm just going to add a couple of observations here, and then maybe you can answer along the same line. So I sometimes feel confused, and my confusion comes from this. So I finished my PhD. Now I want to apply for jobs, and the job requirements say that you should have a PhD in this area, especially hospitality and tourism, right? So they say you should have a PhD in hospitality and tourism or related field. You should have 3 to 5 years of experience, blah, blah, right? I mean, a lot of stuff. Then I see a lot of people who come into PhD with 5-10 years of experience, which is like Katrina said, and even though I don't want to say it, but I have to say it, 10 years ago, right? That work experience. But then that's it. That's the experience they talk about in the class. But the industry is going so quick, right? The other alternate is what Katrina and Lisa just said. You keep yourself updated. You try to find faculty internships. You try to work with the industry. Which one, in your opinion, would be a better option for PhD students? Because they also have limited time, right? So should I go and find internships while I'm a PhD student and get myself, some experience, or should I get a job and then work with the industry to be up to date with everything? Which one do you think is a better option?
I think that's a tough question. Okay. But my opinion is, I think as Lisa and Katrina said, it's industry experience is really critical these days, and many programs, even PhD programs, are expecting that the students, the applicants, has at least 2 to 3 industry experience as well. But based on my experience, for the PhD students, they can attend, as Katrina said, they can attend the conference, ICRE or HITEC, more industry-focused conference, and then they try to approach the companies they are interested in, and then they can speak with them, and then what kind of the expectation they have, and what kind of business problems they have, and how they can collaborate each other. For instance, when I attended the HITEC conference last year, not last year, 2 years ago, I contacted the several data analytic companies there, and also Amazon as well. And then I briefly spoke with them about my research and then what they are expecting from academia. And then I asked them to, why don't you provide your data to analyze to help you? And then they said 100% yes. So maybe that's good opportunity for PhD student or master student to be involved in those the project. And also uh, yes, absolutely we can do learn many different things from faculty internship after becoming a professor. But in my opinion, these days the PhD students need to have indirectly or directly industry experience during their PhD.
Right. So, if I summarize all what the three of you said, I believe that there's no right or wrong here, right? So, I like what Katrina said, that if before getting a job or even before getting PhD, you want to find a job for maybe 1, 2, 3 years, the intention should be to get some understanding of the industry, but mainly generic skills like people skills, team management, and stuff like that. And then once you get your job, then it's just like anything else. You should be a lifelong learner. So you should keep yourself up to date by going to the industry conferences and talking to the industry people and stuff like this. Now, one thing I've seen in the US, which is really, really good, is that anytime you contact people from around yourself from the industry, they don't say no. And many times it's really overwhelming. Like, oh my God, it's so special, right? You go to their hotels or any establishments and they really treat you well with your students and everything. I want to mention FIU here, that they do something very cool, bringing, really well-reputed people, and they come to the class and teach. So I think it's a good opportunity, not only for students, but also for faculty members to up-to-date themselves with everything that is going on. All right, perfect. So
can I add that one more thing?
Yes.
So for the researchers, the professors, it's the industry experience really critical as well, because in our discipline, hospitality and tourism discipline, the practical implications are really important when we submit the paper, right? And every single time I heard that, okay, what are the contribution and implication you can make, right? So if we do not have the industry experience and also what the industry is looking for, if we don't know that, and then it's really hard for us to write, okay, how we can contribute by publishing this research article, right? So I think we, the faculty and the PhD students and master students, need to know, so what?
Exactly.
From the industry.
And Minwoo, I would also add that it's not only going to answer the so what, it's also going to put the what question in the first place. Like, what are you doing, right? So what and then so what? So both of them are going to come from the industry. So very good discussion. Let's move a little bit more towards a couple of really interesting experiences. So we have 3 people on this panel, right? And we all know that we have a personal life and then work life. Now, the reason why I say this is because my father used to work in a bank, right? And I do not recall any day where he would come home and then work. Like, so he would go to his office, that's where the work is, and he would come back and then that's where the home is. Now, sometimes he would bring back work when there was closing time and everything needed to be reconciled and everything, but not really, right? Now I look at myself, so I come back home, and then when I come back home, I have to bring a lot of work home because I have to prepare for the class, I have to meet this and that. So I don't know how this work-life balance actually works with academics. I cannot find an answer for it. Everybody is just like this mainly, right? And if you really want to be productive, then it even gets worse, right? So my question is this. And first, I'm going to go with Katrina, then Lisa, because there's a special thing about both of them. One, they are both female. And when I say female, it's not because of any type of sexual discrimination. I say this because there is specific challenges with, gender-based challenges. So let's say I know that Katrina, when she was very productive, she had a baby, Now, when there's a baby, you cannot ask the baby to be quiet, I'm writing a paper, right? You can't do that. So there's baby. And then I also know that not only Katrina, but in the past we had Wan Yan, who had a long distance marriage. So the husband is in California, she is in Florida, and then you know what to do. And then with Lisa, the same problem. So Lisa has 3 kids, and then two kids, and then Minu has more, right? So I'm going to come to Minu later. So Lisa has 2 kids, and then Lisa and Katrina, both your husbands do have PhD as well, and they also have research-based careers, right? So Katrina, first to you, how does your work-life balance look to you as a person? Do you think you have a good balance? If not, how do you deal with that?
Thank you, Faizan. I think that's a question that we can discuss until tomorrow and would not solve that. So, but I think we all are trying. And well, I can tell that there are different pieces that come together to find that balance, or at least peace with yourself and your family, right? So of course, it depends on the expectations that you probably set for yourself and your job sets for yourself, for you. So, but then another item is that academic job is great in terms of offering you flexibility with working when you want to work, when you need to work. So in some positions, you may have to go to class and go to meetings, but after that, you're pretty much on your own, right? So some jobs may be a little bit more structured, but you know, when I had my son, then that changed a lot of things. So, and for many of them, you will not be able to plan in advance. So, for example, one part of planning that I did is that I had my son on my 3rd year of academic career, of an assistant professor career. So why? Because that's the year when you do your pre-tenure evaluation. So basically, you already know if you are moving forward well, you already have a pipeline of papers that are going to come out when you are breastfeeding your baby. So, you know, it's sort of the machine has started, and there will be that element of just pushing you forward while you need some downtime. But sometimes you may want to have a child earlier or later, but that's a personal choice, right? So I'm just giving you an example how I planned for it. But there are a lot of pieces when you would not be able to plan for it. So for many females on the call, I can say that my child refused to take a bottle. So, and what that means, it means that whatever you do, but you need to be there physically when he wants to eat. And that's a big time constraint, right? But we had to work around with that and just plan your schedule. We had a nanny so that I was at home and the nanny was at home, and that made me much more comfortable. So also different countries have different maternity leaves, and different cultures also have different expectations, I think, for how you take care of your children. So, for example, in Russia, it's basically unheard of that you send a, 1-month-old child to a daycare, and the maternity leave is 1.5 years paid and 3 years unpaid. So you can take up to 3 years. So, for example, when my mom hears that I get 3 months and then I have to continue working with my son being 3 months old in the United States, that's basically a culture shock for everyone. Right? But, you know, this is something that I think you work out as a family, because my husband helped a great deal. And I think that also him having a PhD and just being the human being as he is, that helps a lot. So I tried to send our son to a daycare at 4 months old, and I couldn't. So, and yes, and also, for example, COVID, I think showed us something, that the lines between the work and life are being completely blurred. But at the same time, for example, last semester, we worked in a situation when we split the care of my son between me and my husband. So I would spend all morning until the lunchtime with my son. And then at the lunchtime, we all meet, and then we switch in the afternoon. So And believe it or not, it worked out. So you probably get into that focused mode when I had only time between 1 and 6 p.m. when I could work and have my meetings. So, and also when I think that when our son was born, I also started switching academic job to more of 9 to 5 format, so that when it was possible, I would go to the office from 8 to 5. And then when I would come back home, I would have dinner, I would play, read, do whatever with my son and my husband. And then, yes, later at night, it still creeps in and you check emails or you read something. But I think that right now I'm having a better work-life balance than I had before our son was born. Yes, I'm working on it.
All right, so very nice, Katrina. Two observations. Okay, so one you said about having a baby and planning for it, and I want to mention another good friend of mine, Tiffany, who is also from University of Houston, and I remember her Facebook post last year that actually really put me into thinking about how difficult it is being in this profession and then also being a female, because what she wrote in that post was just so thought-provoking. She said that she knew that her baby is going to be born in, I don't know, July or something, and then she had to finish everything by June that year. So she had to work double to make sure that her papers and everything are in so that she doesn't suffer after the baby is born, which is unbelievable. I mean, sometimes it's just not something that everybody can understand, right? Other than people who go through it. So somebody in the chat, Eduardo, actually thanked all the women for making the world a beautiful place. And I absolutely concur that, so thank you all. Even though today is not the International Women's Day, but we still thank you. All right, so that is cool. Moving to Lisa. Oh yeah, the other observation, Katrina. So you said that you planned everything, right? Which is cool. So I assume that you get this planning skills from your work experience before PhD, and then you put it to good use.
Everything.
So for
and my PhD included.
So not many people have this planning thing. So if you want to be good, plan things. It's pretty good.
No, well,
Lisa,
yeah. Sorry,
yes,
I had
go ahead.
classmates during my PhD and they had a child while both of them were doing PhD and they both were my classmates. So I think they were probably the most focused PhD students in our hallway. And they send the child to daycare. They work 8 to 5 writing their dissertations and they go home. So I think maybe that was the tip and I learned from them.
Yeah, so I mean, again, Katrina, it's also personal preference, right? So some people are okay for their maybe 3-month-old or 4-month-old kid being at a daycare some people are not, and either way, it's okay. It's a personal preference. So as far as it works for everyone. All right, so Lisa, same question for you. But the reason I want you to think about this question is because in my case or in Katrina's case, I know for sure because you don't have families here. We like people who are immigrants or first generation immigrants, you don't have families to help, no grandparents, nobody. And I know that Katrina was struggling because in Russia, people have to work. So she didn't have her parents-in-law or parents come together, but one person would come stay here for some time, then it go back, the other person will come. So was this having kids, taking care of them equally challenging for you, having that support that maybe some other people don't have? So I just want you to tell us a little bit about it.
So I actually did not have the privilege of having that support either, because my in-laws and my parents live in Pennsylvania and Florida respectively, and my husband and I live in Las Vegas. So we also were lacking that family support system. We did have friends who we consider very close enough to be like family, who did help out occasionally. And our situation was also unique. So to me, well-being or work-life balance rather is is a very fluid concept, and it's also a very personal concept, because what is balance for me on Monday isn't balance for me on Wednesday. And what is balance for me may not be balance for you, Faizan, or may not be balance for Katerina. And my husband and I took the approach with having children that we don't know what life is going to provide for us, right? And so we didn't know when we would be, granted the gift. I had never been pregnant before, so didn't know how easy or hard it was going to be to get pregnant. I had friends who had struggled. I had friends who had no problems. It turned out it was spectacularly easy for us. And so I actually was pregnant through my entire last year of my PhD program and gave birth to my son 3 weeks after my first semester as a full-time faculty member as an assistant professor at FIU. And I did not take any time, but I was also teaching asynchronously online for FIU for my entire time. And so I was one of those people who sort of wanted to give as much to my children as I could. And because I had this luxury of developing my classes behind the scenes and checking in at my leisure, which was more often, and for an infant, it's actually quite easy to check in, especially if you don't have to be face-to-face, because they're sleeping most of the time anyway, or nursing, and that's the whole equation: holding, nursing, sleeping, changing. That's it. It gets more challenging when they start moving and walking. But as you said, we have 2 children now. And I think you just have to figure out what works for you and what works for your family and what's important to you, because I get a lot personally. I get satisfaction from my job, from my collaborations, from teaching, from my interactions with my students, from my interactions with my peers. There's a thrill to publishing that I thoroughly enjoy. And by the way, congratulations, Faizan, on your most recent publication, which I saw earlier today. So I think it's really understanding yourself and what drives you and what gives you inherent joy and pleasure and also motivation. I get a similar, obviously, joy. I mean, I adore my children, I adore my husband. And so we find ways to make it work. And we find ways to be present for our children. And when we're present for them, we try to be fully present for them. And when I'm present in my work, I try to be fully present in my work. And sometimes, because especially during COVID, those 2 things do get very blurred. Sometimes they peek into Zooms, they'll interrupt while I'm mid-sentence writing an email to someone or trying to revise a manuscript. But it's, that's also part of life. And I think it's really just knowing how you best function. And that does, unfortunately, I don't think we can impart advice for you. There has to be some self-efficacy there, and knowing yourself and really who you are and what is important to you and how you work best, both for your family and in your personal life. And then also just really focusing on the things that really help you to refocus and to recenter. So for me, it's working out or going for a run, especially going for a run really helps me to recalibrate and to recenter myself if I'm getting a little stressed. So knowing what does that for you, whatever your hobby is or your passion, maybe it's bicycle riding, maybe it's photography, maybe it's watching a movie, but knowing that and knowing how to help yourself get rebalanced if you are out of kilter, that is the best advice I can give, is just knowing who you are and what really does it for you and what makes you happy and focused and centered. And then putting all the pieces together for yourself in that capacity, and also knowing your worth and bargaining for it. So if you know that you're better online, or if you know that you work better and you'll get more out of being in the office and in person, we all have our skill sets. So knowing what yours is and leveraging that and demonstrating that to your school is going to help you personally and professionally.
Very good, very detailed, Lisa. Just on a lighter note, one factor that both you and Katerina missed is also it depends on what type of kids you have. And if you have kids like my kids, then you need triple planning for everything, because they like everything that I do. So sometimes my research papers have their stories written in the middle. Because I didn't know, I go to restroom and I come back, they've typed something and I don't know what they did. So, so it depends on what type of kids you have also. Okay, let's go to Minwoo. Minwoo, so obviously You are not in the same situation like Katrina and Lisa. So I'm going to rephrase my question a little bit for you. Now, you are originally from South Korea, okay? And there is something about Asian culture, me being from Asia as well. It's ultra competitive, and maybe it's self-imposed competition, right? Where you want your kids to excel at everything. So now my kids have, I don't know, 24 different types of classes going on every day, this, right? And then also because now your kids are going to schools here, but at the same time you want them to learn Korean language, so they might have classes, and then some sports definitely would be going on, right? Like swimming or this or that and all that stuff. And then you, again, the same problem, being first generation immigrants with no support. How is it for you then, work-life balance with that pressure of kids and their classes and everything other than school, right? So how do you take that?
I'm still looking for the best way to make my work-life balanced. So it's a very challenging question. But the funny thing is, without my degree certification, I remember where I studied because my first son, Ryan, we had him during my master program in Lubbock, Texas. And second one, Aiden, was born in Canada, Montreal. And third one, we had in Emerson, Massachusetts, where I studied. But first of all, without my wife, the Heaven's support and dedication, I could not make anything. So I really appreciate her, and I try to help her, and I do my best. But the first thing is, I just, as a sole family here, we are the first generation as immigrants in this country. So there's no support, and we need to do everything. But the first thing I found after becoming a professor, this is one of the academic freedom, I think. We can manage our time. So one thing I really tried was I just put my Saturday as the family day, because previous time I work 7 days a week. And instead of putting the Saturdays my family day, I changed my work time. So I realized that when I come back home, then everyone is tired, my wife and me, right? So at the time, just I try to help her to take care of our kids, and then I slept with them. But I wake up early morning, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., and I start my work on that time. So it can increase my efficiency and also effectiveness of work. And also staying with my family on Saturday is really helpful for me to uh, play with them and share many different things with my kids and wife. And also I can give my wife some time to take care of herself. So my kids and I just tried to some chores on Saturday. So it's really nice for everyone to stay together and spend time together.
Right. So again, I think the key is to understand how your family functions, right? Because every family is different, and I think the earlier we talk to our partner, spouse, or whoever, that this is what it is, and figuring out how to deal with it, the easier it becomes, right? I absolutely agree to you, Minwoo, because I'm going through the same stuff right now. There are kids, you cannot ignore them because they didn't ask me to bring them to the world. So, they are here now. We cannot ignore them, and we have to take care of them. At the same time, it's all. So for people who don't have kids yet, or any other things at the moment, no marriage or whatever, I just want to tell you to understand this, that there are 24 hours in a day. And you cannot change that. You cannot make it 25, 26, 28, just those 24 hours. And the more responsibilities you get, it means that you have to squeeze your time for all that things that you are going to do, right? So as a PhD student, if you are single, then that means that all that 24 hours belong to you. When you get married, then it means you have to now divide your time with your partner or spouse. You have a kid, then it becomes more. You become a faculty member, then now you have students to take care of. So I think understanding that is very important, because one problem that I've seen, and which actually leads to many problems between families or among partners or whatever, is that people don't let go. So if, let's say, I'm publishing a lot and now I have kids and everything, and if I don't let that go or at least adjust it, then definitely there will be some problems, right? So understanding that becomes really important. Now, we are almost towards the end of the panel, so let's move to a little bit more specific questions. And Lisa, my question to you is this. Now, obviously, we have families and everything, what we just discussed, right? And job and all that stuff. In this time, motivation is very important, right? To stay on track, to stay, what you are doing to make sure that you finish it. Motivation is important, right? But we are in a field where demotivation is very common, right? You get rejections, your papers get rejected, your some applications get denied or stuff like this, right? And sometimes you go to meetings, you hear a lot of stuff that you don't want to hear, right? So, I mean, a lot of stuff can demotivate you. So what is it that you do, Lisa? I know you like running, but other than that, are there any strategies that you implement to keep yourself motivated and not really be stressed because of those issues that I just mentioned?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I take pride in my work, but I don't consider my work as part of my self-worth. So I definitely put a lot of effort and time and energy into papers that I write, research projects, but I don't necessarily put my own self-value into those papers. So if I get rejected or if they need major revisions multiple times, I don't then look at, I take a beat and I digest what's being said, but I don't wrap my own self-worth in it such that it crushes me and I walk away from it and never pick it back up again. The second thing that I do is I surround myself with as many positive people as I can and as many positive relationships. And it starts in the home. It starts with a supportive and positive spouse. And then it builds outwards from there. So I try to surround myself with positive colleagues and positive working relationships. And I build this committee, or this, support network where we feed off of each other. And I also think that how you look at other people's successes plays a huge part as well. So especially in our industry, success is not a zero-sum game, right? It's not finite. If you're successful today, it doesn't mean that I'm not successful today, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be successful tomorrow. And I think celebrating each other and being happy for one another and proud of one another and being proud to be in such a forward thinking and progressive and successful environment is something to be happy about and proud of. And so I think those three things in particular, trying to take a positive lens toward everything, being happy with who you're surrounded by, both in their successes and as you work with them, are beneficial things to you. And then again, just not getting too invested in the work or so invested in the work that it becomes demoralizing anytime you get a rejection. They don't know who you are. This isn't a personal attack on you. And I have papers that are published that I would love to go back and rewrite and revise now, and I can't. And so it's just one of those things where it's a moment in time, and definitely digest the information. It does take a little bit of time, but then go back to it and work through it, and it's all going to be okay in the end, especially if you surround yourself with the right people.
Thank you, Lisa. So Katrina, same question, but here's where I'm a bit confused with all this. So when I say that there's a lot of opportunity to be demotivated, it is because there's so many variables that go into this, right? So I just told you that my father used to work in a bank. I honestly don't know, maybe he thought like me also, or people who work in other industries think the same way. But when I look at academia, it's too many hats that you need to wear, right? So even like when you are assessed annually, you have to you are assessed based on your teaching, where the students pass comments on you. So that's where you are assessed. Then it's research, where you are assessed by a bunch of people who select, journals or grants or this, that. Then it's service, So then again, so there's so many people who have to say something on your performance, right? And like Lisa said, it's not finite. It's not like, numbers or, how much money did you bring? It's not like that. There's so many variables. And then on top of it, you have issues with collaborations where you are like you said earlier, right? You say yes to somebody, then you let them down or they let you down. So that's also another issue. So, and in your case, Katrina, you were at USF, which is a good university, but then you move to Mississippi, which is R1, and all of a sudden your expectations change. So now all of a sudden you need to find grants and you need to write proposals and all this. So as a human being, I mean, how do you change that mindset and make sure that you are fulfilling all those expectations?
I think it's very important to, first of all, learn what the expectations are, but also to learn what are the support services that you have. Because, when we, for example, change the job, we are excited about the new opportunity, new people, or anything else that attracted you to that institution. But at the same time, it's always a learning curve. So I mentioned earlier your contract that you get with the position. So for example, when I moved to the University of Mississippi, I had a course release in the first semester. And then I was teaching only one class and I was given one service appointment. And I was sitting in my office and thinking, oh my God, I can read an article. I can just sit here and pick a topic and I can do what I want. And that was very helpful. It was extremely helpful because with the R1 university and the structure that it provided, I had to learn about the Office of Sponsored Research and Programs, meet all the people who are helping you with grants, go to different seminars, and basically figure out that entire system. So that required time. And I think that, working towards that is very important. So it's not only knowing the expectations, but also knowing the help that you have. Plus, I think that asking for help is always a good thing. So sometimes those people who have been longer with you than you or just have more experience, they can give you that answer in a minute. And you will spend maybe, I don't know, hours going in circles and trying to figure something out. So, but I think that it also does a great thing because if you ask someone for help and it will require the minimum amount of time to do that for you, then that person will be also more inclined to ask you for help. And then basically you're cultivating relationships with your peers and you're showing that, well, in a way, yes, it's a weakness. If I come to Lisa and ask her, Lisa, I don't know how to prepare this budget for our grant. Do you know how to do that? So maybe she has put together 15 budgets and she will just, guide me through it in 5 minutes. So, and then another aspect that you mentioned, Faizan, is other people and their evaluation of them. So I think that it's impossible that all people who you encounter will love you. I sort of don't expect that. That's not my goal. It's not something that I am, fixated on. So, but what I do with that, for example, with student evaluations, I look at them and basically I can say that I sort of apply text mining to my student comments. So text mining is looking for patterns, right? So if I see a clear pattern in my student comments that, I don't know, this professor was disorganized, it's not relevant. So if there is a particular pattern that I see from students being repeated over and over again, then I think, well, yes, there is a problem. But if one student said that something negative about me, and then another student said something completely different, then, I just let it go. So, okay, that's a personal opinion about me, and I just move on. And I think the same happens with, for example, reviews. Everybody gets rejections. And for example, Faizan mentioned my Paragon Award for online teaching that I received in March, but he didn't mention that I received a paper rejection and 2 grants rejections, right? So that happens and that's a part of life. So when we have, for example, reviews from the paper, then one of my ways to deal with it is to give it a couple of days, because I think when you see the rejection, it hurts you, and then you start reading the comments and people go on to explain why you're bad and your research is bad. So then you just, it just sort of dwells on that pain point. So I see rejection, I scan through it, I say, okay, let it sit for a couple of days. And then I come back and try to rethink this paper and think, okay, so there is a professional, a researcher with a PhD who said this about my work. So there must be a reason why this person said that, right? And I just try not to take it as a personal offense, but I try to take it as a learning opportunity. And, if the researcher says, I don't know, for example, you haven't considered common method bias, and I don't know what that is. Okay, I go and Google common method bias. So you pick up a book and you read what that is. So it may be anything else, but you just try to learn from it. And in some cases, such as, for example, with grants, we applied for a grant and we did not have any comments because the competition was so hard and the funding agency just did not have an opportunity to provide feedback to everyone who was involved. So that's sort of probably the highest downer that, well, that was funny that I said it, right? But okay, you just get a rejection and you don't even get anything to help you deal with it. So, but then, again, we looked at it, we said, okay, it was great to work together. Let's give it some time. Let's think how we can reshape this project, and maybe we can submit it to another funding agency. Maybe we can, pool our strength in this team together and find a way to do this research. But, just take that as a learning opportunity and try to stay positive and rely on those people who are around you, who support you along the way.
So thank you very much, Katrina. I really liked your comments as well as Lisa's. And I want to say to all the participants here that many times you look up to people in your careers, right? There are people who you look up to and you feel that they're good and they're intelligent and whatnot. However, like Katrina said, it's not only the success, but it's also a lot of failures, and it's part of the game, right? Which the important thing is that if you come across a failure or a roadblock or a setback, to learn from it and not to repeat those type of mistakes again, so you can develop yourself. So thank you very much, Katrina, for that. Minu, same question, but I want to rephrase it a little bit, okay? I just want to tell you, Stan is here in the participants. And a couple of days ago, he shared something on Facebook, not Facebook, an email thread on TriNet. Maybe some of you might have seen it. And he shared what he did in 2020. Which I was so surprised about. I thought maybe he hired a few robots to do all that stuff because it was so much stuff, right?
I had the same thought.
Yeah, it was so much. I was like, oh, how is it even possible? But anyways, so think about this. Now, I know for sure that many people that inspire me, I am sure that they do much, much, much more than what is written on their contract. I'm very sure, right? I mean, including three of you, I know that you do much more than what was written on your contract. And Minwoo, you talked about academic freedom a couple of times, right? You did talk about academic freedom in the US and all this. Is it really academic freedom? And the reason why I ask this is because, okay, the college may tell you that you are allowed to publish wherever you want, yet the college has a list that you need to follow, right? So you teach whatever you want, yet there is assessments, yes, yet there is like all these accreditations and everything. So you are still in a bound, right? You're still in a bound. You cannot really go out of it. So then what type of this academic freedom is, and how challenging it is for you to keep yourself really on track within those bounds?
Okay. I have never thought that can be the bound, because if I focus on my specific research topic in the hospitality and tourism setting, I don't have to worry about which journal I need to send the paper, because the answer is just one. Okay, leading hospitality and tourism journals. So I always try do my best to publish those work in those leading journals. And so actually, if we have narrowed down our research focus and then do our pipeline very specifically, and then we don't have to worry about that. And so if I add the comment to the Katrina's points, maybe we need to think of why the region, why the editors and reviewers are there. Because whenever we get the rejection, right, or major revision, I think why they are there, because they are there for helping us to improve our papers or work quality, not just evaluating, attacking us personally, right? So every single time they spend their valuable time and effort to give us more constructive and feedback and also advice, right? So I really appreciate their efforts and time. So every single time I receive the reviews from the journal, I really think about, okay, how we can discuss with them further by improving my work quality or paper, writing paper more clearly. So that's the positive way we can develop our work.
All right, thank you, Minu. While you are here, so this is my last question. So I'll start with you and then I'll go to the other panelists. So let's say that Stan and Sedan, Dr. Sedan are doing some research and they come up with a time machine, okay? And we put you in time machine to go back and start your PhD again. So what is it, what is some stuff that you would do, like start doing that, you know, if you have a chance to go back, and what is some of the stuff that you would not do and stop doing? Yeah, I actually invented a time machine for you, so I need a good answer.
Okay, my first answer is I do not want to go back to my PhD study because I'm really happy now. But if I go back to my first year of PhD program, I may want to make a clear plan for my last 10 year, the next 10 years. So one of the advices I really appreciate for my the PhD advisor, they always push me to think of, okay, you are not PhD student, you will be a professor. So think of what you can do to make that goal. So that's the maybe I want to do in my first year. And also the other thing I want to stop, maybe I want to more focus on my family, because at the time I didn't know how I can efficiently manage my time and also spend my time with my family, because family is everything and the only reason why I'm working hard. So I just want to spend more time with my family.
Mhm. Thank you, Min. When I agree to this, I mean, the time goes so quick, right? Sometimes you don't realize. I mean, we all say like, once my PhD finish, I will do it. Once my mid-tenure finished, and then by that time, it's like, you know, everything is already passed on. So thank you for your answer. Lisa, we want to send you also 10 years back, or I don't know, a few years back to start your PhD again. What is the one thing that you will start and stop doing?
I guess it's challenging when you go back in time, right? Because if you change one thing, then doesn't it shift everything else that you've done going forward? So I don't even know if I can
Did you
like
watch a Marvel movie? Did you watch like Avengers or something?
we have watched the Avengers many times. So that would be my only concern with changing anything. But I think just focusing on relationship building and really keeping my head down and focusing and not getting distracted by external noises would be my best piece of advice for you. It's very easy to focus on the here and the now and all of the external things that are happening. But if you're forward sighted and focused and you just keep your head down and get your work done, I think I would work on relationship building, but I would focus less on the drama in the PhD workspace and more on just the end goal.
Thank you, Lisa. And then last but not least, Katrina, we also want to send you, don't go to the travel agent though. just focus on PhD.
Thank
So
you.
that
Yes,
one thing. Yes,
yes,
go
this
ahead.
reminded me of the butterfly effect, and I am agree with Lisa. I don't really want to change anything, but if I were to think about these things from the advice perspective, so I think something that I would have done differently is try to work more on my rating. So I think that I was very fortunate to have a PhD advisor, Dr. Kelly Samrad, who was, very particular about my rating. She also has her undergraduate degree in communication. So she was very hard on me. And, sometimes as a PhD student, you think that, oh, I have this idea, but it's not good enough, or it's not developed enough, or something else. But over the years, I found that when you put something in writing, it sort of helps you to shape it. And, when I was working with Dr. Samrad, she would always, not always, she would often tell me, when she reads my writing, she says, Katerina, I know it's in your head, but it's not on the paper yet. And then she starts asking me questions, and she sort of walks me through it. Like, why is this? Why did you write this? Like, how do you connect these two things? And then everything comes out. So I feel that sometimes it may be sort of boiling in your head, but if you put it in writing, in your notebook, in your, notepad, scratchpad, anything that you have on your computer or on paper, I feel that it helps you to shape that idea, and probably it will give you something that you can act on and you can further develop, and maybe you can bring it to your advisor and ask for feedback. So that's something that I would spend more time on, or maybe be more brave with it or consistent to write these ideas down. Because, I used to have sort of a notebook of different topics that I would look at, or like relationships. But for many of them, they just stayed sitting there and they were never developed. I feel that for the reason that I didn't put any time in developing them. So, and the positive side, I guess, over the years, I try to make my work in all aspects of it more efficient. And this is very personal, like many aspects of the conversations that we had. But for example, I told you that I like technology. So I rely on technology a lot in organizing my personal work. So for example, all of my files are on Google Drive. And when I was a master's student, I had a scare, and Dr. Jihan may remember that my laptop broke almost before my thesis defense. And of course, the latest version was not emailed to all of the committee members. So that was a very scary moment. And that was also a learning opportunity. So later, I subscribed to Google services. I moved all of my work online so that it can be accessed from any computer, from a mobile device. I spend a lot of time on organizing these files. And then also I use different other tools. So there are things in our life that take a lot of time. For example, scheduling, right? So you want to schedule an appointment. Your students ask to schedule an appointment, and you will, it seems like, okay, a couple of minutes here and a couple of minutes there. And then you spend time typing these emails. I'm available at this, and this. So I started using different tools, such as if you use Google, you can create appointment slots in your calendar and give students a link and let them book an appointment with you. And recently I started using another tool, which is called Calendly. And that also allows other people to book appointments with you. And the beauty of that is that it allows to also merge two calendars together. So you may not have that problem, and then a free version of Calendly would work for you. But for example, I have two calendars that I needed to merge. And basically the only place for me to do that would be my smartphone. So now I have this nice tool which puts together my availability in one place, and I can send links to people to book an appointment. So, things like this, trying to find a way of how your work can become more efficient and effective. I think that's something that helps me along the way.
All right, thank you, Katrina. So now, while we are towards the end of this panel, before we end, if everyone agrees, I think that there's one person in this session, Dr. Jihan, that we already mentioned that has touched all our lives, right? All of us, like all the panelists, and obviously myself. So I just want to ask: is he here? Let me see. I saw his message here.
Yes,
Dr. Jihan is here. So yes, Dr. Jihan. So I actually have one question, two questions for you, but I'll put them in one so you can answer them. And this is really impromptu, I know. So if, forgive me for this. The first part of my question is that you obviously now are a senior professor, right? By senior, I don't imply you are too aged. I just imply that you touched many people's life, right? So now at this moment, you see a lot of people that you mentored are in positions where they are now mentoring other people, right? How do you feel looking at the people that you have guided, are now guiding others? This is one. The other one is, overall, in your experience, what are a couple of different tips that you would give to younger researchers based on your experiences so far?
Right. Thank you, Faizan. And of course, all of the panelists here are dear to my heart as well. And even though I didn't work with Lisa during her PhD studies, but I see that she's a shining star, and I really love her work. Of course, Katerina and Minwoo is also, I didn't work with him as well, but he's another shining star as well too. So it's wonderful that you have this panel, Faizan, and of course you are no exception as well. You know yourself very well. So I asked earlier, Katerina was talking about Calendly. I didn't know it, and I was looking for a solution. So one of the benefits of doing this, Faizan, that you learn back. You teach them a little bit, and then they teach you even more. So that's the number one benefit. But also, one of my lifelong philosophies that I learned from my parents is that the more you share, the more you gain. So that kind of like gives me this feeling that when I do what I do, and you are no exception, Lisa, Minwoo, and Katerina are all the same as well too. So when you share with others, you're not thinking that, oh my God, something is reducing. If you have a piece of loaf, I always give this example. If you were to give half to somebody, then the other person will think that, oh, my bread is now less. No. When you share the knowledge, it's actually the other way. Actually, when you share whatever, it's always the other way. Anyway, it's just like grows. So that's one benefit that I got. Katerina was my student. I almost killed her, by the way. I want to tell you a personal story. This is nothing to do with research, but she came to University of Delaware. I was an assistant professor at that time. And then she arrived to the department, and I didn't know that I know that she was going to come. And I was so hungry. It was like 2 p.m. I didn't have my lunch. I was just going out of the door to go into the food court of the university. I opened the door. As I opened the door, Katerina was right outside of the door. This is the door that you cannot see. And the door went into her nose, just like this. If she was there like 3 seconds before, I don't know what would have happened to her. I mean, she would have to go to hospital, that's for sure. And then I said, oh, I am sorry. And then I didn't know who she is, but I still didn't stop because I was hungry. Who knows me? When there is food, I don't see anything else. So I went to the food court. Then I came back. Then she said, she's Katerina, she's my student. And we start working together. And one of the things that I want to give her credit as well, that it was interesting that Katerina was my actually assistant. She was assigned to me as my research assistant. Perfect. 1 week later, I got another email from our graduate coordinator, said that Katerina is now assigned to somebody else. They made a mistake. Oh my God. I thought that I found a very good student, and now she's not going to work for me, but I already gave her some assignment. You know what she told me? She said, Dr. Jihan, I'm happy to work with you. Even though I'm not your assistant, let me. So that kind of like also segues into your second question, Faizan, is that this is taking the opportunities wherever it is. If she didn't do it, she would have still graduated, maybe. Would she go into the PhD? I don't know, probably not. She told that earlier in the beginning of her conversation, because her projects were actually research projects. I never forget, that's one of the first things that we published together. And GHDT was being born at that time. And then she was involved with that one as well too, because she said, I'm happy to work with you. This is what I'm telling. I always tell young scholars here is that have the self-confidence. We are human too. Like, look at me. I'm a now endowed chair professor. Oh my God, it sounds so good, has multi-million-dollar behind the name. But yet, I was an assistant professor. Katerina knows this very well. I have my still fears. I still get rejected. I got rejected the other day from a journal that after the 4th submission revision. And was I angry? Yeah, I was angry. But so what? We are all humans, right? At the same time. So the young scholars, have the confidence. And then somebody earlier texted me, said that, can I contact Dr. Faizan Ali? I want to do research. I want him to be my mentor in this. I said, of course, ask him. Faizan, as far as I know, don't eat humans yet. He likes gyro, he likes doner kebab, he likes baklava, but he doesn't bite people. The worst thing that you can hear from Faizan or Lisa or Minvu or Katerina, let's say that you email them. The worst thing that's going to happen, they will not respond. Maybe it went into the spam folder. Maybe you reached Lisa during a crazy time that she just doesn't have time to respond. So what? Nothing is going to happen. You can be persistent, send another email, but don't tell Lisa, what a jerk you are. Why don't you reply to my emails? Don't say like this, right? Instead, Dr. Kane, I have sent you an email. I'm just following up one more time to see that if I can get a response from you. Easy. And if she doesn't do it again, don't take it personal. Because believe me, in my inbox, people who know me, they know my inbox. Usually I have about 1,000 to 2,000 unread emails. Doesn't mean that I don't like you. Doesn't mean that I ignore you. Doesn't mean that I don't, whatever. No, it's just sometimes not possible, but you got to be persistent. Somebody could have reached me email. They went me through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. That's what I'm going to tell people, that please create your professional network. One more piece of last advice that I'm going to give all the young scholars who may be listening us live or maybe from the MTCon YouTube channel later is that use the social media. But I'm not just talking about these wonderful selfies. Do I look good? Not like that. Of course, that's also needed. I mean, I'm not going to say that don't do it. It's good that you can just share a nice picture with your friend but also use it as a professional portfolio. This one, post things related to your research topic, whatever that is. This way, if Lisa is in your network or Katerina or Minvu, they see that you are posting things like this. They will say, you know what, this student is interested with this one. And then you engage, right? When Lisa or Faizan or Katerina post something related to robots, or Sedan is a wonderful example of this, that engage with them. Maybe write a comment. This is going to create your professional network. So instead of a cold email to somebody that you never have any interaction from another country, right, that they don't know you, there is no reference or somebody, if you were to have this kind of connection, then it will be easy. Then they will say, oh, I know this guy or woman, lady, girl, whatever it is. Oh, they are active. So this is a good researcher. I want to work with them. I will accept ask them. Michael Casavana is one of my mentors. He was at Michigan State. He retired right now, but he was the guy in hospital technology. I reach out to him. He was so good to me. Same thing with Galen Collins. Galen Collins had a book, and I reach out to him and I ask him, I said, Dr. Collins, in your book, I'm reading your book, there were some mistakes. Like there were things that were a little bit out of thing. He told me, Jihan, this is so good that you told this to me. Why don't you become my co-author? And I he took me as a co-author to his book. Now, Katerina is a co-author in that book. Anil, also my former students, is a co-author. I love it. You know, they make the book even better than what it was. Okay, that's all, Faizan. I hope I didn't talk too much, but when I see all these wonderful scholars here, I really get excited. And even though it's 2 hours, still people are writing many good comments and questions. Kudos to you, to all of you. Thank you for doing this for us.
No, thank you, Dr. Jan. It's never too much. I think it's all learning opportunities for everyone. Everyone learns from, sharing experiences and stuff. So thank you for answering my question, even though I put you on spot impromptu. So, and I also want to thank Stan. I know he is also quite busy, but he also joined the whole session and he had been quite active in chat. So thank you very much, Stan. Another very supportive full professor that supports a lot of young researchers. So, Siddhan, what am I going to do? Am I going to close it, or is IPEC going to close it?
Yes, as we mentioned before, IPEC will close the session because she will share a brief information about our special project.
I forgot. I mean, I just thought my brain is not good for remembering the cooking recipes, but this is another one. So anyways, I just want to thank one more time, Lisa, Minwoo, and Katrina, and then of course, Dr. Jihan also. In my opinion, I learned a lot from this panel. I'm very sure that everybody else learned a lot from it. And I'm grateful, especially because sometimes people are not willing to share their personal experiences, right? Because sometimes it's not very good or very good, I don't know. But thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and thank you for giving your valuable time to us.
Dear participants, on the behalf of the MTCon organization team, I would like to thank all of you for participating and contributing to this session. I also would like to thank our moderator, Dr. Faizan Ali, and our guests, Dr. Katerina Berezina, Dr. Lisa Kane, and Dr. Minwoo Lee, and of course, Professor Jihan Chobanoğlu and Dr. Sedan Doğan. Before closing the session, I would like to inform you about the project called Forest Tourism and share a short video. In the last 2 years, nearly 400 hectares of forest were destroyed in Hatay, Turkey. Trees and creatures lost their lives. Forest Tourism Project aims to create a forest of 100,000 trees in Hatay to recover the losses. Every day, a new sapling is planted in forest tourism with the help of our donators. The cost of a sapling is only 10 Turkish liras. If you would like to be one of the donators of this project, please visit the website that's shown in the video, turizmormanı.tuader.org. Hope to meet with all of you at yesterday with the third scientific session. Have a nice day, evening, or where you are, depending on where you are. Thank you. See you soon.